Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Coffee with Lo. I'm here with my special guest, Kaylan from Tangerine Suns Apothecary, and it's a special episode. So normally these are Patreon exclusive only, and we've decided we wanted to make this public and available to everybody. I've been on a bit of a hiatus, but I am back and we are here. We have beverages and we're going to chat just a little bit, and hopefully you guys can enjoy the journey. So for today, Kaylan and I are going to be mostly talking about our ex-Christian journey, being raised with a religious background, coming into the religion, out of the religious and into the spiritual witchy sort of community and world where we are now, talking a bit about our witchy businesses. And so Kaylan owns Tangerine Suns Apothecary. And do you just want to introduce yourself a little bit, kind of give some background on what it is you do and where you came from?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Kaylan, as she said. And yeah, I was raised very, very much so in a Christian context, specifically Southern Baptist. And coming out of that was a whole unraveling of my life, and also kind of putting the pieces back together in different ways. So I would say, I was about 20 years old when I started to kind of started to really be willing to kind of unpack the pieces and look at things a different way. And a lot of my journey was through my university, actually, which is interesting since I went to a Christian university. But yeah, so when I moved to Spain after having been in that context of a Christian university, I was really able to just kind of come to this place where I was open and willing to kind of find myself, find my way. I knew that I had always been spiritual. I had always felt that connection to spirit, to universe. It was just called something different when I was growing up. But after coming back from Spain right before the pandemic, I was very much into crystals. And I've since found out that my soul's origins are from Atlantis, which makes a lot of sense when it comes to crystals and intuitively picking them and stuff like that.
Which you are so good at, by the way. I never interrupt, but I brought a little collection of some of my favorites from you.
Oh my God. I love that.
You are very good at picking them.
It's my favorite part of crystals is picking crystals for people, seriously, which is a little bit anti-capitalist, right? People usually want to see exactly what I'm getting, and I want this because of this trend and this thing that I've heard. But yeah, working with crystals has been such a huge part of my healing journey, and it's been one of those things that has just made sense for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that I always come back to. It's very tangible. I'm a very kinesthetic learner, and so just being able to have a crystal sitting with me or putting it on my heart chakra or whatever has been so important for me. And yeah, just after I started the shop, completely diving in and being okay, this is my safe space to be who I am and to explore who I am and to have these meaningful conversations with people like Lo, and be oh my God, I'm not actually alone. This is such a huge revolutionary thing that all of us are kind of coming to a reckoning with, and being there for each other through it all, if that makes sense. So
it does. Yeah, that was a big one for me too, was actually finding that community of people and being oh, okay. So it was just the people who were around me in those moments growing up and having to sort of find each other.
Yeah. And for me, since I was raised in a place, I was raised in the Bible Belt, right? I was raised in a part of the United States that is the Southern United States, where everyone kind of thinks and evolves and lives in this way that has to do with not even a particular religion, a particular denomination of religion, right? And so it's everyone thinks and does and is in this particular context. And so kind of learning to first part of my journey was learning to be within that religion, but outside of that particular context, and then like even opening up further and being like, okay, how open of a hand can I kind of have with this, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was huge. And I think like I was actually thinking about this earlier today. Like, I honestly think that my spiritual journey would have been as exponential as it was as far as growth goes, even without like the context of starting a shop. However, starting my shop was what the universe used like as fuel, like as this kind of catalyst to be like, okay, figure out who you are, figure out what you actually believe, figure out what you want to embody, because this is your life's work now. And it was such a turn for me. Like, I wasn't supposed to be in this line of work. I was literally about to be hired like before COVID, in something else that I was passionate about that had nothing to do with like metaphysics or spirituality or anything like that. And it's just like, that was the method with which the universe allowed me to grow and like showed me all of these things and brought me all of these beautiful people. And that's just kind of how it was supposed to go.
I think it's really funny too. I think that especially people who are transitioning from a very religious background, especially if you're one that's more like evangelical, there's something about when you actually go into business after you've had your spiritual revelations and everything, it's almost easier to transition into some sort of a business or a role where you're helping other people, if that makes sense, just because it's the way that you're used to functioning, but like also learning how to discover your own power at the same time. And I think it makes a huge difference. It's like, for me personally too, like I can't help myself. I have to like give people information. Like if I learn something, I'm excited to share it. And I think kind of a part of that came from like the upbringing in the background too, and learning how to do something like that and to share information in a way that's not like pushy or feeling like you're right. Like you know, I've got this information, I'm really excited about it. Here it is if you want it, as opposed to the way we were used to doing things before, which was like, take this.
Absolutely. No, for sure. Like that has been something that I've been focusing on so much, even the past few months, and just like really looking at, and like, just when we think about like our life's purpose, and before, like within the context of a particular religion, right? Like I always said that my life's purpose, like my mission statement, was to speak for those whose voices had been silenced. And that's like a great mission statement, right? Like that's amazing. However, I think that it's a little bit too like focused, and it's a little bit too like I said that because of the mission statement of the particular religion, right? Where it's like, yeah, you give these people this love, like you do this thing for these people, right? Like I personally, I've been to those like I've taught, you know, Syrian refugees. I've done like the good work where it's like, okay, yeah, you're speaking for those whose voices have been silenced, but like what at the end of that, right? And I think that like the spiritual community or like the witchy community has given me so many more answers to that, and it's like nuanced it. It also makes it more difficult, right? But I think it should be more difficult.
Because I think it's almost like what you were doing before, or what, like, I mean, we all have experience, especially like religiously. You consider it in a way giving people a voice, but it's almost like giving them your voice, and like, what are you leaving them with after that, right? Whereas now it's kind of like, yes, I actually want you to discover your voice, even if you don't necessarily follow the same things that I do. Like, find what gets you excited. And it makes it, like you said, it's very almost more challenging in a way, because I don't have all the answers. And I think coming from an fundamental like place, you're used to feeling like you have the answers, and there's a control element that you have to let go of and be like, look, I want to help you with these aspects and figuring out yourself. And then you sort of send them on their way and, you know, give them an actual
exactly.
to voice their stuff themselves.
100%. Like, I think that before, and again, these are things that like I'm just now able to kind of put under like a microscope and be like, what was so, I I don't even want to say something with like such a negative connotation, but just what was so short-sighted about that? And it's like, because you're just thinking about your role in it. It's just like, oh, like you've given them a little bit of power and now they're set for life. And it's like,
But it
it's
feels
not
very
like
different
that.
when you're in it. And that's what's hard to explain too. Like you cannot see it from the other perspective. Like you genuinely are like, this is so good and helpful. And it's actually really funny. So have we talked about this? I feel like we have. Because you said you went to a Christian college or university. I told you I did too, right? I honestly can't remember. Yeah. So like even the similarities in that, and that's how I'm like, I know we have so much to talk about, but specifically, and I had talked about doing a series as well and possibly some lives. So I'm probably going to put like a thing in the doobly, people, a little comment. If people actually are interested in ex-fundamentalism, coming out of Christianity, broom closet witchcraft, dealing with boundaries and family members and transition and guilt, let us know. Let me know. You're probably going to share this on yours and I'll share on mine too. So like, just let us know. And if people want it, like we'll do a whole series on it, but there's so much to unpack there. And I think it's not just us. There's a lot of people, especially people who are still really struggling with it. And I talked about this on my live yesterday. I did like 3 lives in the past couple days, so everything is a haze. But I was talking about like broom closet witchcraft and how some people are like half in and half out, or there's specific family members maybe you'll put stuff away for. Sometimes it's for your own safety. Sometimes it's just out of like respect for the person, which is primarily the case with me. I know we have some family members that it just makes them a little uncomfortable. So there's some things I leave out, and then other things that I just kind of tuck away. Like I have this beautiful Ouija board, but a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. So I kind of like put that away, and I found like easy ways to sort and organize things. But I think there's also a lot of people that struggle with that, being like, well, I can't have tarot cards or this or that. And there's solutions. And that's, I think, what's the most fun now to share is different solutions. I'm like, tell me what you're struggling with, and I can do my best to help you figure that out, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also just like for me, it's been so fun, like educating family members or like friends about the real origins of witchcraft. Or like, have you seen, I forgot his name. He's like a very famous witch on Instagram.
Matt
Like
Oren?
it's the Witch of Southern Light.
Oh,
And he
yes.
talks about like the whole, oh my God, I'm gonna forget it. But like the incantation that's literally like your rubber, or I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. Like that's an incantation. And just talking about how like there are so many things that are misconceptions about like the power of words, and just like talking to people about that. And I feel like it's such more of like, I don't know, like a neutral space to talk about the like, what do you mean when you say something with intention? Or like me burning this herb, like what does it really mean? I'm not just like lighting something on fire for God knows why, you know what I mean?
You could be though, that's the thing, right? Yeah, like it really depends on what your intention is. And that's one of the things that I discovered too, like exactly what you're saying. I've had so many conversations with my mom. She still hasn't come around to tarot fully, but she lets me kind of every now and then explain it to her. And she like texts her friends about it. She'll be like, Lo, can you explain what you do with coffee again? Because Donna's confused. And I'm just like,
you're like,
okay.
Am I doing it for entertainment or for education? Because what I say is going to be different.
I think it's a little easier in a way for me because I'm a very science-based witch, in that I'm one of the like spicy psychology believers. I think that a lot of witchcraft is intention, manifestation, like spicy psychology. And I think there are elements that we don't fully understand, but I don't rely on those. Like I like astrology, but I appreciate the science and stuff behind it. And even as a kid, I remember always saying, I feel like the full moon, like what a weird thing for a kid to say. But I used to say, like, I feel like the full moon can be explained with science, because the moon affects the tides and our brain is surrounded by water. So I'm like, wouldn't that just put pressure on your brain and make you go crazy? Like as a kid, this is what I was thinking, is trying to find ways to explain like weird phenomena and stuff like that. And I'm still very much like that. Like even shadow work, I have recommendations from actual like clinical psychologists and stuff to help guide people. Cause I know it's a very loose term that gets thrown around a lot lately, like shadow work and stuff like that. And going back to those original roots of what things are and sort of bringing witchcraft and science back together, I think is important too. But a little woo-woo is fun. I enjoy that too.
And like, it's such a universal thing, right? Like, I mean, if we think about even like the origins of science, like why do we study science? Why do we study the origins of the universe and the origins of this? It's like it all goes together. And
well, science sounds crazier than magic sometimes.
Absolutely. Like you're telling me really that this tree is made of zeros and ones? The fuck? Like, but it is. Mm-hmm. It is. You know what I mean? And like those patterns, yes, are all throughout nature. And it's like the great balance, right? Of like, here's the physics and here's the metaphysics, and it all goes together. Mm-hmm. And like that actually is something that I learned from Christianity of all places. Like I remember, this is a hilarious thing to look back on now, but I was like, I want to say like 17, and the like trendy thing to be talking about and thinking about theologically in my church was like Calvinism versus Arminianism, which I don't know if you like know what that is, but I'm sure you do. But like for anyone listening, it's about like, do we have free will, or are we predestined? Are we elected to be like God's people or whatever? And like without like throughout all Christianity, like different denominations, like people disagree, right? Like that's one of the things that there's like a line throughout Christianity that people are thinking about it in different ways. And I just remember I can't remember if it was my friend or my teacher or whatever, but they were like, look, this is how you guys are thinking of it. Like duality, like polarity, one side and here's the other side. And this is how I think it looks to God. And they were like, it's like this, like it's both. And
I almost wish more religious people were like that. Like I've always really, really admired Judaism because it's all about constantly arguing and diving in and reading and rereading and discussing your own faith and your own beliefs. And well, this could work, but maybe not this. And just going back and forth. And I think it's such an important discourse to have, because even within that one religion and reading these same stories over and over, like you can change your mind. You might be wrong about something. You can listen to someone else's perspective. And I just didn't see that coming out of the Christian church enough. Yeah. I think they do sort of exist, but like so many other ex-evangelical people, I think I've been disappointed by thinking something was progressive too many times. And then finding out once you get to like the top or whatever, that it was just the same. It was all politics. It was all the same. And it was just really hard to deal with, I think, because I think like you as well, we've both, kind of gone out and gotten involved. Like you can't just kind of sit back and be on the sidelines. I mean, one of those people that's like, oh, I'm going to go to church, listen to this person, and then leave. Like I had to get involved. Like youth groups were my favorite, but it never quite felt right to me. And I think that's where we differ a little bit though. We had that discussion where you were very much like involved in it. And for me, I was a fake it till you make it Christian. I was trying so hard. And I had people who were talking about how they suddenly had this moment of realization about like the death of Christ, and they sobbed. And I'm just like, yeah, that was something. Like I could never. And since I was a kid, my family was very religious, and they'd bring me a little piece of evidence that would kind of keep me going for a little while, or they'd show me a coincidence and that would keep me going for a while. But I just can't not be involved. I want to help people genuinely. And like my kids were such a big part of it. And unfortunately, when you're involved and when you volunteer, you get to find out what's like on the back end and what's going in the office and what's happening at the top. And it's the same. And that is something I'd like to see change. I think a lot of the time when you come out of something like Christianity, people get very angry, and rightfully so. But like, I still read my Bible and find it fascinating and like so interesting. Like I've got, oh, it's down there somewhere, and I have another one. But I also went to a Bible university, and the one that I got from there is an incredible Bible. I had huge problems with the school. I dropped out after 2 months. But the Bible itself that we got was so good. And in the introduction and like the what do you call it? The notations, they're so in depth about the translations and everything. And I love it. It's even got the Apocrypha, and the introduction actually says there is no real way to translate this, and we're, you know, only human and translating something that's been translated over and over again. So there could be errors. You have to look at the time, you have to contextualize. And a lot of Christian people who I encountered throughout my life said, don't do that. No, it's the word of God. It is what it is. And I'm like, this one actually says that it's kind of not, though. And there could be mistakes. And so I still like to read it, and I still find it super interesting. And, you know, I think I approach it from a very, what do you call it? Like a very like discussion based perspective. I love having a good, you know, debate about it and sharing. And so I think that's good. I know there's a couple other witches in the community that still incorporate aspects of their religious upbringing into their witchcraft, just because it was such a cultural part of who we were, that it's hard to step out of it. Like I still have some favorite like Christian pop songs because I wasn't allowed to listen to normal music.
No, 100%, 100%. And
it's so embarrassing, but I'm like listening to like FM Static or like, I don't know, Newsboys or something. And people are like, what is this? I'm like, shh. There's actually one song that I love, and it has one line about like, dear God, something, but the way he says it is horrible. And it makes me so upset every time because the rest of the song is so good. It's an FM Static song about driving a Volvo. It's great. It's called a nice work of art, or a nice piece of art by FM Static. Anyway, my sister has offered to remove that one part of the song because she does like video and audio editing. And I'm like, do it.
I got you.
I'm like, do it, please, because I will listen to this on repeat. It's just this one song where he's like, dear God, I hope you can hear me. And I'm like, no.
Oh.
I want the rest.
Yeah. No, I totally relate to like the songs thing. Like, and even if I don't like actually listen to them, because sometimes like actually putting them on is worse for me, because it's like, oh, then I get triggered or whatever. But like they'll pop into my head, or like verses. And like there's so many, that's been the thing too. And I think that we've talked about this, where like certain verses will come to my head where I'm like, this is literally what I still believe. Or like
so how do we listen to some of them before though either? Like Newsboys, they don't serve breakfast in hell.
Oh my God.
We went back and listened to it, and we were like, this is awful. They're like terrifying children being like, sorry, there's no Captain Crunch in hell. Hope you enjoy fire.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude.
And people are like, why did you leave the church? I'm like,
that's why.
That wasn't a fun song like I was told it was.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. That's like crazy stuff too. And like I struggle with that too, even where it's like, I can't even think of an example. There was one song that I put on by Hillsong. Cause like I've always been a person that like I could be a music witch, like straight, like take away everything else from me. Like I don't even care. Take away the beach. Like if I have music, like I'm good. And I feel like you're the same. Like we're very much on that.
I get the goosey. So, what's that word for it? When you get like goosebumps when you hear music, apparently.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
It's very embarrassing because sometimes it happens when like Barney is on or something.
Or like I'll cry, like I'll literally like tears will be coming out, and it's like it's just from the song. It's just from the vibration of the song.
Yeah.
But same. And so like sometimes like I honestly don't know at this point if it's like just because of the song or it's just because like I associate the memory to the song, because like so many trips that I've had, especially like trips that I took like with Christian organizations, like we'd be listening to those songs, right? And so it's like I hear that and I'm like in that place again. But yeah, I'll listen to them and it's like I can't get past the lyrics sometimes. Like it'll just be like, only through whatever I come to, and I'm like, oh, it's so exclusive. Like it's so.
I used to pretend. So embarrassing, but it's true. This is when I say fake it till you make it. So this might actually make things make more sense. I haven't really talked about it publicly, but whatever. So I was recently late diagnosed with Asperger's, which is like autism. So it explains my deep like love of TV show characters and movies and how I like become them. Anyway, so when I was in church, it didn't make sense to me, the God thing, whatever. And I used to pretend that they were like, it was like a church of people who, and like they had this perception of who they thought God was, but it was really just like the doctor from Doctor Who. So everyone would be like singing about Jesus and I'm just like, he's just an alien, guys. This isn't what he meant. Y'all are crazy. But some of the song lyrics worked so well. And they'd be talking about like the stars and I'd be sitting there just thinking about Doctor Who and I'd be like, this is great. And my mom was looking like she's so into it. And I'm like, Doctor Who.
Your mom's like so happy. She's like, she gets it now.
And I'm just like making up entire episodes of Doctor Who in my head based on like this weird storyline I'm creating. Oh my gosh. But that's, you know, I just rewrite the songs based around. So unless they actually come out and say, which they kind of rarely did. I went to a Pentecostal church, but like one of the new kind of like they had a stage. It was built in an old movie theater. So when I say like my trust has been betrayed many times by churches I thought were cool, they welcomed like LGBTQ plus people, but then they would say your practices are not cool once you were, you know. So I was very betrayed by the environment, but it was one of those very like pump up churches. So very rarely did they directly say like God or this or that. They were like kind of trying to be like pop and skirting around it. So they're very good songs, very catchy. It pulls you in. I mean, I think the first time we went there, because we were Catholic, and then we went to a Pentecostal church, and they like hit the guitar, and I think it was so loud, my whole family was like,
yeah, like night and day difference, like.
And there was the one guy in the back who I think his name was like Andrew or something. And he always had one arm up and he was always like, praise the Lord, praise Jesus, like so loud. But you get to like, I like characters. So for me, like, even if it's not for me and I'm not like into it, I'm just like, oh, it was Alan. I was just like, you go, Alan. Amen. And I'm like, yes. It was so fun, but it's a very nice environment. That's the unfortunate thing. And that's what was really hard to leave. And I think people struggle with because you lose those people, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes.
And that's why the community is so good. And I'm so happy to have like you and all these other amazing like witches and people who have gone through, first of all, honest to God, like the same experiences growing up, which is crazy. And then to be interested in the same things, which you've kind of been told were weird or bad for your whole life. So finding this community, even though it's online, is kind of like the equivalent of what I've been feeling like I was missing. But if you tell that to people in your life or former Christians, they'll be like, what you're missing is the Lord. And I'm like, it's not.
It's not though.
Yeah.
They always say that. It's all, no, but I agree 100%. Like for me, that was the one thing that I think even kept me in it longer than like I would have been in it. It was the community. But like, if you think about it on a psychological level, right? Like it makes sense. Like you tell this group of people that they all have the exact same purpose and that they have to work together, and like they have all of this same conditioning and like this same belief system and the same like even ways of, because I mean they even talk about like spiritual gifts, so it's like if you see someone who's beside you who has like the same gift as you, like you like that bond, even if it's a perceived bond, is going to be so strong. And like that's why also I think for me, like you were talking earlier about like how you kind of had to do this like fake it till you make it, and like in our conversations we talked about how like I like bought it like hook, line, and sinker, but it's still it doesn't matter at that point, right? Like it, like a person like you and a person like me, we could have been like exactly like this for the whole entire time, and it would have been just like sharing the same struggles, like doing the same thing, like we're going after the same goal. And it's very much like like you said earlier too, like it's hard to explain it for someone who hasn't lived it, but it's very like as if someone were training you to go into sales.
It is brainwashy, which I've always been very like cautious or hesitant to say. And it can be cult-like. It's very weird. It's Christianity itself and the experiences that I've had. And I know it's not every single denomination, but it is many. And especially if you get involved, the way that they bring you in and then kind of hold you there is very brainwashy and very kind of cult-like and isolating too. Like they talk about being unequally yoked, right? And like the people you surround yourself with. I know we're having like a moment, but it's true. Like the people you surround yourself with, they talk about like people who swear or people who like hang out and do this, and they isolate you from those people. And yet when you disagree, like when I ended up leaving the church and I had some horrible stuff happening around that time, it was really like a bad time for me. I was hugely depressed. And they kept trying to convince me to come back. And I'm like, look, like they wanted me to get together with my now ex-husband. And I'm like, it's not working. Like, it's really bad. It's not a good situation. And they're basically just saying like, no, there's ways that you can make it work. Like if you need to take a break, but like, and then they actually at one point tricked me, took me out for my birthday, made me think that they finally accepted everything. And then they had secretly arranged for my ex to show up to the restaurant where they took me out to dinner afterwards. So not cool. And then I never spoke to any of them like ever again. They were just done when they realized I wasn't going to come back or change my mind. So to them, it's a tragedy because it's like a lost soul, someone who's like wandered away and left the church. Meanwhile, I arranged my own missions trip the next year with my dad and like some friends and whatever. We went down, I think it was like 2 or 3 hours away from where they had their missions trip, because I still wanted to go and they wouldn't let me go.
Of course. And
I'm like, you won't let me go help people? And they're like, it's about optics. And I'm like, really? I know. And I'm like, if I was new to your church and you didn't know me, you'd take this as an opportunity to show my story and like how, this horrible person going through these experiences can change and become better. But because you know me, it's optics. And despite the fact that I'm having a down moment right now, you won't let me help someone. So yeah, they wouldn't let me go. So we went down and I have pictures of us like going to Lowe's and buying all this hardware. We helped this other church that we found down there. It was like a Baptist church in Pensacola, and there had been some like hurricanes that blew through. So we fixed a roof and, did a whole bunch of stuff on our own. But we never really went back, and they wouldn't let us come back and do anything. And my ex-husband stayed on. And then I think they eventually found out that he was a chronic liar, like I had told them. And I think he moved on.
It's just so crazy to me, like how that pattern repeats itself. Like, and that's what I think is so tragic to me. Like at first it was infuriating, of course, because it was affecting me directly, as I'm sure it was for you, because yours was like a lot more, cruel. But now where I'm sitting, it's just like so heartbreaking because I'm like, these people, like you said, like I don't like to use the word brainwash because like who wants to like who wants me to tell them like, oh, you're brainwashed? No one. But like it's so conditioned, right? To just be like black and white. And so they cease to see people as other people. Like that's what the real problem is. Like they didn't see you as a person struggling no matter what the circumstances, like with their marriage.
It's like a checkbox of like if you're saved or if you're not saved or if they brought someone else. It's scary, honestly. And like I don't know, to be able to make that transition, like for me now, I just want to be able to provide, and that's why I thought it was important we talked about it today, because, and like possibly for another series, because I know there's people out there that still struggle with it. And maybe even if they've made that transition, like dealing with the guilt or feelings about, oh, I don't know if I can practice this type of thing. You know, for some people, like it might be tarot or, you know, a Ouija board. Like Matt was so opposed to having a Ouija board in the house for so long. And I'm like, first of all, I cleanse it. Second of all, it was purchased brand new with the purpose of being aesthetic. It's just beautiful and I love it. Third of all, I keep the things separate. And fourth, like, it's wood. It's what you put into it, you know? I'm not leaving it out and building up this negative energy and fear. Because when you do that, I think you welcome in not great stuff. But I'm like, it's what you give to it. And I'd like to be able to be that support for other people coming out of similar situations, just because I've been there and I know so many other people who also have, and I'm okay to talk about it now.
Exactly. So I was terrified. I don't even know if I told you the story. I was terrified of tarot when I first got my tarot deck. Like I very much already had experience, like when a crystal called to me. So it's like a very different experience, right? Than like anything that I had experienced with Christianity. And a particular deck called to me through this shop that like really helped me get started in my shop. She's just like an amazing person. And she was doing this thing where like they were all used decks, but they were lightly used and she had like cleansed them. And she was donating. I think that was like even during like right when Black Lives Matter stuff happened. She was like donating all the money. And I just felt like super called to this deck. And she was she was selling a lightly used 𝘬𝘠𝘪𝘳𝘪𝘵 and WTF is Tarot book, which is like now what I use all the time. It's what I use in all of my readings. And it's the same deck that I got from her. And like literally I bought it because I was called to it, and like it sat there for like 2 months because I was just like, I know in my soul that I'm supposed to use this, but like my mind is still telling me lies about like I'm gonna open some portal to like whatever. And like, yeah, I think like you said, like it's so important to like be a resource for people who are going through that, because like there's nothing wrong with you for like going through that, because we have to like push past all this conditioning that we've had.
But you have to work through it at your own pace too. That's what's important, because it's so easy to type 60 times on 60 different TikToks or Instagrams being like, is it okay if I do this? Is it okay? And they'll be like, yeah, it's totally fine. There's nothing wrong. But you still look in your mirror and think, crap, did I open a portal? Like,
yeah.
Now I'm
especially
just like,
when you've been taught to be afraid of those things. You know what I mean?
There's like, also parts of the witchcraft community and witch talk where there's, first of all, misinformation. Second of all, if I wanted to be in a religion, I would have stuck with religion. I don't think you can subscribe to one single set of beliefs. So when people are like, don't put two mirrors across from each other, it creates a portal. And then they get so mad, like, we'll let you suffer, I'm like, I've been putting mirrors across from each other forever. I'm fine. I think when you fear it and you expect it, and if you believe it, then that's going to happen. I've lived in haunted situations before, and my house has had horrible stuff happen. I've had mirrors set up across from my bed and been fine and done things totally the right way and cleansed and had problems. But I think the fear mongering is a big problem within the sort of witchy community, like specific sets of rules. And
absolutely.
That's one of the things that does bother me. I'm like, no, I left religion for this reason. I think there are things that need to be rules, like, you know, not appropriating practices and like indigenous sage and that type of thing. But there's a big difference between that and being like, you're going to let in demons.
Yeah, like I left the rules back there.
Yeah.
Like, go back there. Exactly.
Who made you the authority? And then not only that, is what you're reading based on exoticism from like Wicca and whatever else. I'm like, do research a little bit. And also, if I'm not spreading harmful misinformation to other people, let it go. And also, who kind of decides what misinformation is? It's so hard and so complicated. So I try to keep most of my stuff simple and straightforward with stuff that's pretty much already been established and like proven.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, people probably get so tired of it because I say this all the time, like all the time. My answer for everything is whatever your intuition says. And people are probably like, but I don't know, like, because obviously, like, I get it as well.
Yeah.
Like, forming that bond with your intuition in the beginning is really difficult, but like, it's so true. Like, for example, for me, like, there's been times, this is a very like simple witchcraft example, like cleansing before pulling cards, right? Like, I personally like to use smoke cleansing, whatever herb, like just some type of smoke cleansing. Sometimes I don't have it with me, right? And the one thing that I feel intuitively that for whatever reason, my guides have been like, before you pull a card, like, we'd really like to use, I have it literally right here, to use Florida water. But guess what? There's been times that I've forgotten. Do you think that my guides like gave me shitty cards on purpose? Like, just because? No.
I know.
Like, any time that like I can cognitively remember, because that's just like something that they've put specifically like on my heart, like, hey, like, yes, do your smoke cleansing, whatever, but we'd also like you to use like Florida water. That's what I do. But it's also like, it's not like a rite of passage thing. It's not like
they're not going to stop working if you forget to. It's more about your energy. Like, I tell people, if you're not in a place where you think you can read them and it's just not working and they're not coming out right, or they're exploding everywhere, fine. Maybe then if you feel like cleansing them, see if that works. But most of the time, I think it's actually about you and where you're at mentally and kind of stepping back. I normally just kind of knock on mine now. I used to have these like elaborate processes of like cleansing, which sometimes I still do, but for the most part, I don't even think I have a deck here. I have matches. I'll normally just like, and then just go and do my thing, give them a couple knocks, and we're on our way.
Yeah, I feel like it's so, like, in the beginning, we're just like, so like, oh, we have to like do it by the book, and like, we don't want to do anything wrong, but it's like, these are esoteric practices that are highly personal. Like, what if someone like can't breathe in smoke of any kind? Like, they're not going to do smoke cleansing. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and I've heard people like shaming other people for using smoke cleansing or for not using smoke cleansing. And I'm like, you can use a simmer pot. You can literally clap like that. I've done this. I've gone around my house and I've just clapped and been like, get out, go away. I told my friend too, we were talking about getting rid of energy. I'm like, sometimes I'll just like pretend I'm literally balling it up and visualize. I'm like, no.
Yeah, sometimes like because you know, you're supposed to like leave a window open or whatever when you're like smoke cleansing.
If it can get in without a window open, it can get out.
I'm like, it's cold. I'm not opening the window just for this. Like, it's a glass window. I'm just going to visualize it like going through the glass.
There's cracks. It's breathable. You got vents. It's fine.
Exactly.
It'll stick by the door, and the next time you open the door, then it'll go out.
It'll go out. It'll be ready to go. Exactly.
I feel better about stuff like this when I feel better about stuff like this. I think that's the most important thing. Like, you'll feel better when you feel better. If you're confident in what you're doing, it's fine. The minute you start worrying and being afraid, which is a lot like how a lot of people are at the beginning, you're going to be nervous about it. You know, you're going to get your first Ouija board or have one. And if you have a negative experience because you're nervous, you're not going to touch it again. If you have positive experiences, you go in confidently, and I'm like, I've cleaned it. I've said it. It's not for this. Never had any problems. So
yeah, I'm so glad that you said that too, because like, I think that especially for those of us who have come out of a religion where it's very like, do this, then do this, then do this, like so many steps, so many like, memorize this and then memorize this and then like do this and like hopefully it'll be enough or whatever.
Control. It's not about you and making. I think that's the hardest thing to transition to, is abandoning the control. Because people who are very religious, I think they've abandoned control to like God, when in reality you're actually just giving control to something else, some unseen force, so that you know exactly what to do. You're still using elements of control, just in a different way. For this, you have to find a way to harness it yourself and actually be confident in you. And that's something that I've found, especially at the top in my experiences, the people who are the most cognitively dissonant and who struggle the most and who feel that they benefit from religion, a lot of the time are struggling with things they can't actually cope with in real life without it. And in some cases, I honestly have to say it's probably beneficial. I know lots of people who have struggled with drug and alcohol addiction, loss of a child, all of these things. Religion's really helped them. Great. As long as that's what you take from it and you're not like being aggressive to other people, I actually think that that's great. And that's what it should be. But the people who unfortunately tend to get to the top and are very passionate and zealous about it are dealing with some heavy stuff that they've had to rationalize and give up to God and not actually work through properly because it's possibly too hard.
Absolutely. That, my personal belief, is why there are so many pastors, there are so many priests that, like, trigger warning, abuse children, abuse anyone within their power, is because it is not natural to suppress natural human sexual desires. And that's like a whole other thing that we can get off
heavy.
on.
There's a lot of heavy stuff for sure. And that's definitely one of them. I think, you know, it would be a perfect position for someone who's like asexual. You know, I have family members that are, and that would be something great. You're not going to do it anyway. Amazing. But I also think there needs to be leeway where if someone's like, hey, I'm a priest, I have these urges, not for children, just for a significant other. They can go do something like normal.
Yeah. You're
gay, go be gay. You're straight, go be straight. But it just, some of these things tend to manifest in a really horrible, negative way. And it's become very bad and corrupt. And then there's the whole history of the church and a million other things. Right. But okay. We have like so little time left, but it was such a good discussion. But I just wanted to share a couple things and then go through our questions really, really quick.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna like dim this light a little bit. But this is what I mean when I'm saying, like, I really genuinely think we could have a whole series about this and like divide it up. So if you're interested, let me know. If you've watched this long, let me know. Okay. I just want to share a couple of my favorite pieces from you because I just want to. I was talking about these on your live. Remember when I said I had like, this was like the golden jewelry thing and this was like a smoky. I love this shape, by the way.
Me too. Me too.
But, okay. Like these things here too, like the clarity on them, I don't even know if I can, because it's so dark over here, but I'm just gonna like show them super quick. Like, I think some of these came with like a little like kit thing that I got, like a self-love kit. That's like a lithium thing or something. I don't know what they are. I just like them. Okay, but this though, I had this on my live. Can you like even see? I'll turn this, like my carnelian bowl.
Yes, we have matching ones. I love that.
She is stunning. I keep my, what were these? Like Lemurian thing, the ones that broke.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I love these. I don't even know if I told you. So you had messaged me because these were like attached.
Mm-hmm.
And the night before you were going to send them or something, you're like, it just broke randomly. So I wanted you to send it. Matt and I had like the biggest argument the night before, like huge. And then we like made up and everything. And I was just like, of course, like you sent it to me, you're like, they broke. And I'm like, of course they did. I'm like, you have to send them to me. Like I need them. Crazy. So I love them, actually. The fact that they broke is so significant. And I'm like, no, we're good. But it was just, the timing was really ironic. But yes, so I just wanted to be like, the clarity of stuff, I swear, is amazing. And I had to. Okay, so rapid fire, I have like 6 questions. Perfect. And then I have a thing I want to do. And then we'll be done. And we can enjoy. It got like super dark here. So I'm like, overly lit by my halo now. You have still like beautiful sunlight.
Yeah, it's like the middle of the day here.
Okay, so favorite crystal.
Okay, so this is hard because when I was asked this in a reading like about my soul's origins, I was immediately like clear quartz, which is not my favorite crystal. But we know based on history and just all these things that like clear quartz is like the Atlantean stone, right? So that's like my soul's stone that like I go back to. But I personally have a top 3 that's like in no particular order: golden healer lemurians, labradorite, and citrine.
Nice. Carnelian is my number 1. I've been drawn to it since I was a kid every time. And still to this day, someone will be showing something. I'm like, ooh, what's that? It's carnelian. And I'm like, every time. I thought I was finding something new. No, it's carnelian. And I always love how they have, I call them like Jupiter eyes. Like, you know, the Jupiter spot?
Mm-hmm.
And Jupiter was my favorite planet. So carnelian is definitely like my number 1, and rainbow moonstone. Love.
Yes, dude. Oh my God. My Cancer rising is obsessed with moonstone.
I love it. I wanted like
Jupiter
opal or what?
What's your Jupiter in? Just curious. You don't know.
Capricorn, maybe?
Okay. Okay, that's really interesting.
I think, I'm not sure. I know I've got a Capricorn stellium with like my outer planets or something.
Yeah. But either way, Earth. You're very Earth, so.
Yeah, I have no fire, which is funny that carnelian's always been I'm like craving it. Like all my friends are like Aries, and I like carnelian, and yeah, I become a fire sign when I play Mario.
Like carnelian can be very Taurus too, though. So that's why.
Favorite tarot card?
Ooh, the sun. Surprise, surprise.
I'm like, what is my, no, I like the Queen of Wands. I call her the shadow work card because she got her little cat.
Yes. Yes, no, mine's for sure.
It's all about balance and accepting yourself as a whole, and even the little tiny dark parts. She's great. Okay. Oh, this is not a rapid fire question. I'll skip it and I'll come to it at the end. Favorite food?
Pizza. I love pizza.
I like good pizza. I think I would have to say pasta is probably my favorite, but I'm Italian, so I feel like I have to. Really good pasta. I've been enjoying like ravioli and tortellinis lately.
Oh, yeah.
Like a brown butter sage sauce. Speaking of which, kitchen witchin is the best. Like just any type of kitchen magic. That's how I tend to get most people trusting witchcraft a little bit. I'm like, you do all of this already? Like, and I say this to my mom who loves like ingredients and essential oils. I'm like, well, what is lavender good for? She's like, sleep and calm and relaxation. I'm like, see, you're doing it. Good for you.
Exactly.
So that's the same thing with food. I'm like, well, if you were going to make something that was maybe a little bit heartier and like cozier, what would you use? And I'm like, you're doing it. Good job. You know. Okay. Favorite place in the world.
Favorite place in the world is Mexico. Specifically, a specific rooftop in central Mexico. It's like anything could be happening and I could go there and it's like everything's okay.
I met Matt in Mexico at a wedding.
Wait, what? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I met, even though he lived in Toronto, we lived like an hour apart. I met him at his cousin's wedding in Mexico.
I did not know that. Stop. That is amazing.
Yeah. So we really want to go back. And we have friends that actually have family and stuff there. So we're like, maybe we can go with friends and like not be on a resort. Would be nice. Yeah.
Dude, I'll go with you. Like anytime you want to go,
travel.
I'll fly from Tijuana.
I know. I'm like, I'm ready. I'm ready. And my favorite ASM artist is actually from Mexico, and I love her. So okay, favorite place in the world we did. So these are kind of like not really quick fire questions. It's the last two. So a perfect witchy moment.
Ooh, perfect witchy moment.
I know. Honestly, I like that one.
My favorite is doing any type of ritual at the beach. I mean, duh. But like any type of release ritual at the beach, it's just like so tangible for me because it's like the ocean just like takes it and swallows it, and it's like you can't argue with the ocean, you know? Like, okay,
I love that. It's almost hard for me because I'm so busy like with family and stuff now, and we're work from home. I'm rarely ever alone. So I think a perfect witchy moment for me would involve being alone. I really like when I'm being a goblin. We have a lake. It's funny, like water and stuff, but no, like I like going down by the lake and like finding like sea glass and hagstones and special rocks and stuff. I also like burning incense a lot. I have like just stick incense. I love anything like that. Just like a nice, slow sort of Zen moment.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. And the last one is, okay. How do you find ethical crystal suppliers? So I guess just be like, how do you know? Like, is it polite to ask people where they source from? Or how do you know if like you're purchasing from someone who actually is an ethical crystal supplier?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if it's polite or not. I do it anyway. Like for me, that's why I buy from like super specific vendors, because like for me, it's more worth it to like support the same people over and over and maybe have a little bit less variety, but like know exactly where it's coming from and know like I'm supporting their family than just like chasing the next trend or whatever. When I first started, I would like FaceTime every single vendor. And some of them like I would find from either crystal shops that I already knew or like Instagram or like doing research in that way. But some of the people that I met were actually like I had a student from Brazil and I asked him right away. I was like, hey, like Brazil's like #1 in crystal exporting. Like, do you know anyone? He was like, oh my God, my cousin does that. So like
That's
those
awesome.
kinds of connections that I already had. And then they would like already FaceTime me because like they're just as interested in knowing who I am as I was in knowing them. You know what I mean? So then it's like in that first FaceTime call that I have with them, they're like, yeah, like here's where it arrives from the mines. And I'm like, oh, like, do the miners work for you? Like, who do they work for? Like those kinds of questions just flow a lot more.
But see, I love that because I feel like you do that like you source so differently and you're so much more involved. Like when you were saying like that's your thing, like finding like I'm like I don't know anyone else who really does it the same way. Like the crystals that I get from you, even if I'm spending a little bit more money so I'm getting like fewer ones, they're still so much more like memorable or important or like stick out to me than if I get like a whole bunch of super cheap ones. Like I love them. I might use them for like pictures and stuff, but they don't talk. I know it sounds so weird, but I know you know what I'm talking about because you picked them. But I have so many crystals and they're really cool. They literally don't talk. Like these ones are my favorite and they have like personality to them.
I think that that's the thing too, is like, I don't buy anything that like I wouldn't personally put in my own collection, which like, I'm not saying that people who do other things are wrong, like not at all. Like, especially shops that are bigger, like that they have just a lot more to keep up with.
I love that option. Like I love the variety of it. Like sometimes I just need stuff. Sometimes I just need it. And then other times I'm like, no, I need something like
that hits. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like for me, like for example, I always use the family that I get all of my lemurians from Colombia. Like it's a family of energetic healers. Like they literally are trained energy healers and they send all of the high vibrations to each and every crystal that they send to me. So it's like, which I mean, obviously I do that as well. Like before, like as soon as I get crystals, like I cleanse them. Obviously before I send them out, I cleanse them as well. So like anything that anyone receives from me is infused with a certain vibration, but it's like those ones are extra infused,
but it
right?
is though, and it's crazy that you can tell. Like, because like I said, I'm not always very woo-woo. I'm a very science-based person. I don't even always remember necessarily what it is or what the correspondences are. I love crystals too, but they are different.
You can feel it. Yeah. It's just because I'm picky with like the people that I get them from. That's honestly all that it comes down to, which like, I mean, other people are too. It's just, I don't know. That's just how I do it. It wouldn't feel aligned for me personally to do it any other way. You know what I mean?
I think that's what's good though, because if everybody did it the same way, it wouldn't be special. So I think that it's important to sort of set yourself apart and have, somebody who's maybe known for being, cheaper and having just like this massive selection if you have to get like gifts for somebody or whatever.
Yeah.
For me, if I have to do like photo sessions and I need like 20 gajillion rose quartz, stuff like that. But yeah, it's just, I like that there's a variety of different people and different businesses and different ways of doing things out there, but you can definitely tell, and that's crazy. Okay, this is my final surprise. Pick a hand, do it intuitively.
Okay.
Oh wait, how am I gonna tell? Okay, wait, sorry, I'll hold one up and one down, because.
Okay, down.
Down, this one?
Yeah.
Okay. I had extra fortune cookies from my dinner last night. So this is yours. I don't know if this is forwards or backwards.
It's forwards. It's just not focusing yet.
Focus. Hang on. Can we see it? If not, I'll read it.
Okay, yeah. Being kind to others will bring rewards. Oh, I love that.
So that's your fortune. I got mine, so I'll do mine. This was my surprise. I'm like, don't get your hopes up that it's crazy good, but I thought it was fun.
I love that.
Smile often and see what happens.
Oh,
I am.
So cute. Yes.
So there you go. Stick around. I'm going to sign off really quickly. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to end the recording, but I do want to just touch base with you after we're all done. So thank you everybody so much for watching. If you have made it through this entire video, I hope you had a great time and enjoyed your coffee if you brought one with you. Kaylan, thank you so much. Just tell everybody real quick, I'll put it in the caption, but where can people find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me at my website, www.tangerinesunsapothecary.com, or on Instagram at Tangerine Suns Apothecary.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.